And now we're live, just like that.
And we are live at Socialite Crime Club. Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody who came in to hang out with us. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We're talking
we
about
do have a lot.
elections and wildlife and victimology and wine and travel. Lots going on this past week and in our lives. So we're happy to have you with us this week. Thank you for coming in.
Got a handful of people showing up. I think people are running a
Yeah.
little bit late tonight.
Yeah, lots of people popping in still. Ann M8152 ordered pizza. Hi, Heather Fitzgerald. Hi, Angel. It's good to have you with us. How's the weather in the UK? We have a rainy day here in Arizona.
I'm not going to lie. I'm
this
a little
week.
jelly of pizza and chicken wings. That sounds really good
That
right
does
now.
sound really good, but we did have pizza yesterday.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we still could have pizza tonight.
Jay
that does
Bean's
sound good.
here. Heather,
yeah, Alicia Mahone, hello. It's good to see you this evening.
Yes, Heather.
Kane
Yes.
B, thank you for popping in. Wonderful to have you
Angel,
here.
it's horrible as usual. Sorry.
Hi, Meg P. It's good to have you. And I don't know that we've ever been necessarily to Europe without bad weather, but we typically travel in the winter or late spring.
This last trip was really good.
Last trip to Europe was good. Yeah, we went late spring and it was nice.
Yes, Eva.
Hi, Swamp Rose. It's good to have you with
Swamp
us.
Rose is here.
Eva Hammer, thank you for catching a live.
Susan thinks you look great.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
Can stop shaving.
She thinks you look amazing.
Yeah. I don't do no shave November.
You really never do
I
no
look dumb
shave.
with the beard, I think.
Hi, Cold Recovered. It's good to have you here.
Meg, I look like a porn star if I grow out like my mustache, so I'm not going to do it. I get that weird, like, what's that look for?
Like a porn star?
Yeah, I just don't like it.
Leslie Vasquez, good to have you with us. Hi, Mimi. It's good to see you tonight. Well, let's see. So we had time zone change. I hope nobody gets confused on time zone change.
Oh, you know what? That could be it too. I forgot about time zone change. So Arizona doesn't change time zones. So we are still the same as always. But yeah, California fell an hour behind us.
Mm-hmm.
California, Nevada.
So when time zones change, Arizona typically in the summertime is Pacific. So we just went from Pacific to mountain time, but we never change our time. We just kind of fall into what the rest of the country does. So instead of being 3 hours behind East Coast, we are now 2 hours behind East Coast. So that's kind of nice because it does save us time when we travel to Florida or Boston or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could start with the elephant in the room this week.
The elephant in the room.
If you want to talk about...
There's a couple of elephants in the room.
Yeah, I'm sure people have some questions, so we'll just get right into it. Yes, Sobertober is over.
That was the elephant.
We brought our wine tonight. We actually...
we did.
Here's a little kick. I don't know who makes this. We should probably have figured this out. I'm going to try to do this in the microphone so that maybe people can hear it. But we have this really cool... What do you call that?
It's like a wine pour spout.
Yeah, but it aerates.
An aerator.
Aerator the wine. So what it makes bird sounds. You can see that it has the little bird there. But when you pour it...
It chirps.
Tell me that's not the coolest thing ever. So anyway, yeah, the big deal is Sobertober is over. And I can enjoy a nice glass of wine now, which is good.
Yeah, let's talk about our little... anyway, let's talk about the wine. So this is a wine called Arit. Did you download those pictures that I sent to you?
I did not.
Of our travel?
Keep talking.
So we recently did a really cool trip. It was just at the beginning of October. We went to Sonoma County in California, and we went to a little town called Heddlesburg, I believe. And Heddlesburg is actually a cool little quaint town, and it has these really vintage little streets, this little downtown area with cute little shops and shopping, and there's lots of wineries that are kind of some of our mom and pop wineries, but it's fairly close to Napa. So we did a trip there recently, and we went
just north of Napa, Sonoma
just
County.
north of Napa.
Yeah, Sonoma County.
And we were lucky enough to be there during the crush. So that was really amazing. And we also took the opportunity to take a hot air balloon ride over the vineyards in Sonoma County. And I don't think we ever really thought that we'd do a hot air balloon ride, but it was truly amazing. And
Well, but
Sai is
why?
afraid of heights.
I'm not afraid of
So,
heights.
yeah, well,
I'm afraid of edges. There's a difference.
you
I'm
don't
afraid
like
of high.
heights.
No, I'm afraid of high edges. There, I put up your. Keep talking. I got your one of the hot air balloon pictures up.
So this was over a vineyard, this picture here that we were floating over. And what was really cool was that the hot air balloon actually took time that our person, I guess, driving or steering
he was
the
driving.
hot air balloon.
He was driving the shit
What
out
do
of
you
that
call
thing.
a hot air balloon conductor? I'm not sure.
Hot air balloon conductor.
So as
There's
he
another
was
one.
maneuvering the hot air balloon, at one point he actually put us right over the vineyard. The bottom of our basket was within inches of the vineyard.
You could
So
pick
we
some
got some
grapes.
cool shots.
Yeah.
We probably would have been able to like jump out of the basket and not hurt ourselves. That's how close we were to the
I
to the
got a
vines.
picture of us.
So there we are, just kind of lifting. But we did it at sunset.
Sunrise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sunrise. We did it at sunrise. So actually there was a lot of fog coming over the vineyards and things like that. So
it was cool.
Got some cool pictures. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of heights. So just so everybody understands,
maybe, I'm not sure. Or Heather.
I need to clarify that because you just kind of brushed right past that.
I'm sorry, honey.
I don't mind heights. Like helicopters don't bother me. Hot air balloon doesn't bother me. Planes don't bother me. I'm afraid of the edge. I don't like standing at the edge of something and looking off. I don't mind if I'm in like a hot air balloon or a helicopter or something like that.
That's why you like wine. Takes the edge off.
Yeah, everybody's got to take it. But there is a reason I don't like hot air balloons. We had a customer, Henrico County. Is that North
Henrico
Carolina?
County.
Is that Virginia?
Yeah.
I think it's Virginia. But the fire marshal, Henry Rosenbaum. Yeah. He is also like the big guru for hot air balloons. He does a lot of hot air balloon accident investigations. And we actually kind of helped out by writing a program that would help map a hot air balloon's route because they use cell phones when they're doing all of their navigation typically.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote this little program that they could download that information and load it into our program, and kind of like mapping cell sites. We would map the balloon. Mm-hmm. But he had this case that I was helping him on where the hot air balloon ran into a power line and the basket caught on fire.
Yeah.
And the way that everything went down, the fire created more heat, so they couldn't make the balloon go down. So the balloon just kept going up, but the basket's on fire and people are falling out. And he's showing me this video, and I'm thinking, I think
people were not only falling out, they were jumping out
on fire.
On fire, yeah.
And I thought, I will never, ever, ever get in a stupid hot air balloon.
But they fell to their deaths on fire. It was really scary.
It was terrifying.
And then the people who stayed in the balloon
just burned up,
were even more charred.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, Lady Di is not too far from there. She said she's like 30 minutes from there.
Yeah, so Keri got me in a hot air balloon, and I guess we made it. I was keeping a good eye on the power lines. I'm not gonna lie though. Yeah. I was like, oh, those power lines look pretty close.
So somebody asked how big the baskets are on hot air balloons. They're actually really big.
Ours would hold 14 people.
They're huge.
Yeah, they're big.
So they kind of have little separators within the basket. So what was it, 3 or 4 people per separator, or was it 2 people per separator?
There was 2 separated areas on either side, and you can probably put 4, so that was 12, plus you could put 3 or 4 in the middle there.
Yeah, and they put separators in there to make sure that the weight stays distributed properly throughout the entire ride. But it's a lot of fun, actually. If you get a chance, just don't take a balloon ride where there are a lot of power lines, and you should be okay.
And on a windy day.
On a windy day, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, that's not good.
All right. Yeah, so it was a good time today. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us again. And so the wine that we're drinking tonight, actually, Erit, it's from a winery that we went to in that little downtown vintage area that I was telling you about in Heddlesburg, if you ever get a chance to go there.
It's great wine.
Great history on this wine. There was a young man there who was telling us the history of the winery. He actually is a great grandson of the man who started this winery.
First generation, sold a cattle ranch in Germany, took the profits of that and started the winery in Sonoma County. But his dad raced Le Mans, and he had a lot of story about racing the 24 hours at Le Mans. So really cool story. If you're ever in Heddlesburg, those of you who travel much, it's in the downtown area. I would highly recommend
a visit.
Get a glass of wine, just BS with them. Really cool family. We joined their wine club. We ordered a case of wine. We got carried away.
Why do we always feel like if we don't join the wine club, like we're missing out on something?
Because I feel bad. We'll cancel probably next year, but maybe not. I'm actually really enjoying it.
Because they take so much time explaining, and especially the smaller wineries, we always join the wine club.
Yeah, we get suckered in because we're suckers.
We are.
All right, what else we got today?
I don't know. This recently, more travels. So last weekend, when we came into the live at the very last minute, we were just getting back from Las Vegas, and we actually went to,
I have you on this camera now.
Oh, good.
I'm switching cameras on you.
Thanks. Sai, I can't say let me. Sai was very generous in saying that he would come to the Princess Diana exhibit with me. So we went to the exhibit, and one of the things that we received after our little tour of the exhibit was these cute little wine glasses, and they're actually pretty good wine glasses. They have a little monogram of Lady Diana on them, or a monogram that appears, but yeah. So Lady Di, I thought you'd like that, and maybe shout out to you, Lady Di too.
She can't hear you. Oh, that Lady Di. I thought you meant the
our
original.
Lady Di here.
I thought you meant the original Lady
But
Di.
I thought of her when I was drinking this. But
yeah, it wasn't all that. Like if you're super into Lady Di, probably. Otherwise, it was kind of a waste.
I like the history of it all.
I know. It's the most expensive wine glass I've ever purchased.
Has anybody ever seen History with Amy? Does she ever pop up on your TikTok feeds or your Instagram reels? If you've never watched History with Amy, I think she works maybe at a museum or something somewhere in the UK. But she does little shorts and reels on history. She mainly was doing them out of Europe, but now she'll do them pretty much anywhere throughout the world. She's done a handful recently of child labor, like in the United States and things like that. But she's super fun to watch, but I enjoy that history piece. And I think Sai mentioned recently that we like to do a lot of intentional travel for learning. But that's kind of part of one of the reasons that I enjoy royal entertainment, because there's so much history that goes with that. In addition to places like traveling to Bavaria, I love history in Bavaria and Germany as well. So
I like the beer. So it works out.
The beer is really good too.
It's just different all around.
Yeah. Remember those little sausages we got when we went to the palace at Nymphenburg?
The hot
rock, the hot stone sausages. Yeah, I think about those a lot. Actually, one of the best hamburgers I ever had was in Strasbourg, France. So just so you know, yeah.
I will tell you, Keri should probably weigh about 400 pounds. If you weren't so active, you probably would, because Keri's quite the foodie. We when we travel, we also eat. I guess we don't eat a lot, but we eat. We don't eat a lot at once, but we eat a lot throughout.
Yeah, we eat.
We're kind of, we travel for food. We eat to travel, and we travel to eat.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into something that came up as a question. I think we've got a handful of things to talk about. Then we'll hit some questions from this week's episode. I already saw some interesting little comments in there we're going to have to address. But this was really
Sarah Montoya. Yes, I did watch The Crown. Thank you.
Oh, yes, we watched The Crown.
No, you didn't. You would always leave
or fall asleep. Okay,
go on.
We got a comment this week about this week's episode on victimology.
No, wait. Well, let's cover victimology in a little bit. I want to talk about elections first.
Oh, you're going to do elections first.
Yeah. Let's get this one out of the way, because it's funny. I've been getting lots of text messages for vote here, vote this, vote that way. Right.
That's right.
And so it's been kind of fun, but we started talking about a case that I had come up when I was a police officer, and it actually made a lot of national news.
This is kind of like a quasi kicking it with Keri.
It is a quasi kicking it with Keri, but it was just a fun one because it is election time. And this happened in 2012. And I was working in Gilbert as a police officer. And a few days after the election, I don't remember exactly when, I receive a call for service. And I'm supposed to go to this open parking lot in this main part of Gilbert. It's our downtown area. And apparently there is a man who's been hit by a car. So I go and I get out of my vehicle, and there's a man on the ground, but it's not just like on gravel or pavement or anything like that. He's in this little ditch area that is just beyond like a parking lot, but the ditch area it's basically just hard packed dirt. And if you've never been to Arizona, we have a lot of clay-like ground because we're in the desert, so we don't have soft dirt like you see in the Midwest where things just corn just grows and anything that you plant grows, right? It's very clay-like. So it's hard and compact. So when I start talking to people about what happened, witnesses are telling me, no, this woman was driving around the parking lot, like chasing down this man. And this man is on the ground and he's clearly in a lot of pain. So we have ambulance coming and firefighters and everything else. Well, when I talk to the woman, she's frantic and she's getting out of her car and she's walking around her car pacing and getting back in and kind of just in a tizzy a bit. So I ask her, what is going on? And she said, I didn't mean to hit him. I was just trying to scare him, and I accidentally hit the accelerator instead of the brake. And I said, okay, well, why were you chasing him around the parking lot? And she said, he didn't vote.
But how was he avoiding her?
Oh, okay.
You forgot
I was going to get that. Well, I was going to get to that because I hadn't got there yet. But
okay.
She said he didn't vote.
I have a picture of her, by the way. I'm going to throw up.
And yes, so this is the woman I was talking to. This is Holly Nicole Solomon.
Yeah, Holly.
Yeah, this is her booking photo. And she was so upset because later on we found out she was so afraid that Obama winning the election was actually going to impact their family's financial needs that she was mad at her husband for not voting, but so much so that she started after, I think they had just gotten done with breakfast at that point or something like that, because there's this big open parking lot and there were lots of like light poles in the parking lot, and they have these big cement round bases. And her husband was running from light pole to light pole, kind of like a Frogger game, trying to take cover behind these cement bases, but he was trying to get to the main road so that he could get out of dodge from her, because there was a little ravine type of thing that he could leapfrog over and she wouldn't have been able to drive. Well, he didn't quite make it to the little ditch area. And this is when she apparently accidentally stepped on the accelerator instead of the brake.
Gritted her teeth and gripped the wheel.
Yeah, she said she was just trying to scare him, right? So she hits him, but he lands like on his back. And I'm not kidding you. When he hit the ground, like it reminded me of Wile E. the Coyote. Do you see the little picture that we have in the imprint of Wile E. Coyote? His body made an imprint like that in the ground. This is how hard she hit him. She actually fractured his pelvis. And like to this day, apparently he has like a foot-long scar going down his belly where they had to do surgery on his pelvis. Needless to say, the next month he filed for divorce. He didn't want to be married to her anymore.
Yeah, but you got to get into the details about the election issues. I know you mentioned it, but it's really important for people to understand. Keep it classy during election cycle.
Yeah, this is why I don't tell people who I'm voting for, because I never know who may want to kill me. And you probably shouldn't either. Just don't mention it. Just keep it classy and keep it to yourself, because you don't know what your spouse or loved ones may be thinking of you. Just don't say anything. Yeah, so...
But he didn't vote for Obama.
Well, he didn't vote at all.
Oh, right. But she was worried Obama... No, it was the other way around. She was worried Obama was going to win.
Yeah.
And which he did, and that it was going to ruin their family. She was convinced that Obama coming into...
It was going to cause them financial hardship, is what she thought.
Yeah, so she ran him over. Because, running over the breadwinner, yeah, that'll be fine.
Yeah. So, yes, good call, Meg P. Zip your lips on politics.
Yeah.
But it's just a funny story because we are at election season, and there are a lot of people who do crazy things around election cycles that are quite criminal. So just thought it'd be a fun little kicking it with Keri's story to share, because it's one of those ones that
just a good reminder. You know what? And let's be honest, all these people come out and they start doing their endorsements and all these other things. Nobody cares. Like, vote for whoever you want to vote for, but nobody cares.
No one cares.
Like, just that's between you and the voting booth. Like, keep it that way. Hey, can we just take a minute though?
Yeah.
And talk about Peanut?
Oh, Peanut. That's something else that's on our agenda to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk.
Peanut the squirrel. Is everybody following Peanut? I'm assuming
everybody's tracking Peanut. I got a picture here of Peanut wearing his little cowboy hat.
Poor Peanut.
I also have his Instagram if anybody wants to start following him. By the way, they've garnered 200,000 followers in the last 48 hours, which is probably worthwhile. If you haven't been to Peanut the Squirrel 12 Instagram, you should go. It will make this story 1,000 times sadder.
And
Peanut.
Yeah, it's when I saw that, I have seen Peanut's Instagram feeds pop up on my phone, and he's really cute.
Yeah, we got to talk about this. And I don't know how much you guys have seen, so let's just do a really quick recap. Number one, a little detail that I don't think has really gotten out there much. The man and wife that own Peanut or had Peanut, number one, he's a rescue squirrel. His mom was killed. They took him in at 5 weeks old or something like that, and literally raised him. They've had him for 7 years. But more importantly, they run a rescue.
A shelter.
Yeah, they're just not Joe Schmo down the street who thought it'd be cool to have a squirrel as a pet. They actually run a shelter. They had a raccoon that was also taken.
And weren't Peanut and the raccoon friends or something?
Yeah, they hang out together. It gets really sad. But essentially in New York, in the state of New York, because, the big problem in New York is people owning squirrels without permits. So
I was just in Manhattan, and I can tell you that's not.
Yeah, why don't you worry about the rats running around and owning Manhattan without permits? But anyway, the fact that Peanut, they didn't have a permit for Peanut, and his Facebook or his Instagram just completely blew up. And because of that, the local government figured it out. And hey, a little tie back to one of our episodes, What the Puck, if you guys remember, with Kelly Clayton. Yeah, Tom and Kelly Clayton with Michael Beard when he beat Kelly to death. That was out of Chemung County.
And this is where little Peanut.
This is where Peanut's from. So if you've seen What the Puck, it's that same area. But because they didn't have a permit, the state came in, or the county rather, and they took both the raccoon and the squirrel, and they were concerned about rabies. There was no evidence that they had rabies. There was no prior reporting about rabies, but really the only way to test animals for rabies apparently is to kill them. At least that's what they're saying. So they euthanized both the raccoon and Peanut the squirrel here. The family's devastated. I can understand why. I would be really pissed. They've had him for 7 years, and it's just poor form. So yeah, let's all take a moment to commiserate with Peanut and family.
Yeah, just a moment of silence for Peanut here.
Stop it.
It's sad though, because I think of our squirrels at our cabin, and it makes me really sad to think that, because some of them get really friendly with us.
No, our squirrels at the cabin are assholes.
Some of them are, but some of them actually get really friendly. No. Remember the one that came up on your chair and wanted to watch you drink your coffee?
It didn't come up on my chair. It jumped on my back unannounced and scared the shit out of me, made me spill my coffee. I screamed. It screamed. We ran different directions. I screamed like a little 11-year-old girl. No, he was a complete asshole.
I know, but he was just being friendly.
No, he wasn't. He was attacking me. There's a difference.
He was not attacking you. Stop.
But yeah, he wasn't no Peanut, I'll tell you that. All right, let's get on with it. Dear.
Yeah.
Got so much going on.
There was just a lot to talk about. So we're talking about things to you that we've been talking about all day as well. So just bringing you to the kitchen table with us a little bit tonight.
Into the loop of insanity. Okay, I want to chat a little bit because we're going to talk about this episode, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and some comments that we're going to try to run through for this week's episode, and we'll answer as much as we can with that. But we did get a comment during the week about, despite if the victim is good or bad, isn't victimology an important component of any investigation? And that was a really good question.
It was a great question. And this is actually one of the first times that I've ever seen this this person comment.
Yeah, so great comment.
911, yeah.
And I wanted to take just a minute to kind of explain victimology, and I've got a great case. And what I suspect people are going to see is, yeah, the Wednesdays are going to go away for a while. We've got a lot of travel coming up. We've got some work that we're having to do and some other things. So it's just, we've got to figure some stuff out. But I do suspect we're going to be throwing down some lives from time to time. And actually we'll do a lot more lives than we are the pre-recorded stuff. And I think in our lives, we'll start telling some of our stories similar to our Wednesday episodes, just not as polished in cut, right? So
that's when we'll get canceled.
Yeah, probably because I'll say something stupid happens every day.
Or me. Our team really takes care of us when they edit. So
yeah, they have to clean all of our stuff up. I actually, every once in a while when we're recording, I can hear one of them in the background be like, "Oh my God, he didn't just say that." Let's talk about John Daly, Dally. He's the third, John Daly the third. He was a Border Patrol agent in Arizona from 1999 through 2019. Border Patrol agent. Came from the Mesa Gilbert area, but then ended up down in the Bisbee area. Well, happenstance would have it that from 1999 to 2001, there was a sexual assault series that was in the East Valley of Phoenix. So Gilbert, Mesa, and Tempe.
There were a couple of sexual assault series.
Well, we had a human sexual assault series, and we had a horse sexual assault series.
Speaking of animals.
Yes, you heard that right. And they were at the same time, generally. They had some overlap, and there was a concern like, hey, are they the same person? Because it was in the same general area.
Mm-hmm. But I also think this is important to speaking about the victimology a little bit here.
The horse sexual assaults?
Yeah, because if you think about the person who is actually sexually assaulting horses versus the person who is just raping human beings, sexually assaulting human beings, those victimologies could have actually appeared very different, although they were happening at the same time.
Although we did do some pretty...
the victim being the horse.
Right. We did some really intensive surveillance on the horse series. And yes, you guys are hearing this correct. It was a sexual assault series involving a male subject and horses throughout our city. And there's a lot of horse property in the Gilbert area. And we were doing really intense surveillance trying to figure this out because the horses were getting injured. And I'm going to spare everybody the details here.
I think I'd kind of like to know, like,
it wasn't him using any of his appendages. He would take things to assault the female horses with. So he was sexually assaulting female horses with different things in general. The guy was just freaking weird. Anyway, we caught him on a surveillance operation. They actually witnessed him going in a neighborhood. We had a helicopter up.
It was the helicopter who
we had FLIR. So we had FLIR on the helicopter.
Explain what FLIR is for everybody.
Anybody who's ever seen a police video from a helicopter where you're seeing kind of that black and white and the hot spots are white and you can see people moving around. We actually caught him sexually assaulting one of the horses on the FLIR on the helicopter in real time.
Oh my God.
Like he literally got caught in the act.
Wow.
But I digress. Let's go back to the real rape series.
So
you can't.
No, were people just like reporting? Were they finding their animals injured and then figuring it out later, or
they
what
were finding
happened?
their animals injured? They would call the vet. There was no reports to the police department for the first couple.
Okay.
And then they're all within a couple miles, and the horse community is small. Right?
So the vet starts figuring this out.
So you have the same vet on a couple of them, but then people were talking in the neighborhoods and they're like, "Oh my God, did you hear Sally's horse got it the other night?" Like it was just this weird conversation. So they started putting two together, reported to the police department, and then we got involved and went to our sex crimes. It's back when I was working sex crimes. I want to be a sex crimes detective. Here's your first case, Turbo. Good luck on this one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the equine inequality.
Okay, so at the same time, there's another rape series happening.
We're working a legitimate rape series, and this one was actually really scary. This guy would enter houses typically early in the morning, so it wasn't late at night. It would be like 3 or 4 in the morning. He would spend hours with the victims. He would go to great lengths to clean them afterwards. He would make them take a shower and shave. And then while they're still in the bathtub, he'd have them rub down with bleach. Very careful in different things that he was doing. Left DNA, he would drink. He would always have a glass, I think it was either juice or milk at different ones. He'd actually pour it from their fridge, and he left the glass every time. And I guess he wasn't putting to the extent he would go to with the victims to clean the victims so that there was no DNA.
He wasn't cleaning up his own DNA that he was
We got
behind.
DNA off of the glasses. So we linked 7 of them in the local Phoenix area. Then it went dry for a while, just nothing. And this is going up to early 2001. And then we had about a 7-8 month period of nothing. And then all of a sudden they got one in Bisbee, Arizona, which, if you're not familiar with Arizona, Bisbee is about 3 hours south of the Phoenix area. This was in October of 2001, right after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking there's a big military base down there, Fort Huachuca. So we thought he's military. He probably got deployed, so he had to leave the Phoenix area and go down to Fort Huachuca. We worked this case. I bet you I spent the better part of 6 or 7 years working this case. But for those of you who are not familiar with victimology, typically victimology is what we use to find motive or to tie victims together to find a common person in their lives. And we had a hit on this case, and I was convinced we were on the right track. So when you do victimology correctly, it is about, I would say, 300 to 400 questions. So it takes the victims a while to fill out. And it goes through everything you do, the type of books you read, the type of movies you watch, your daily routine, the gym you work out in. When you order pizza, do you order from the same place all the time to get your pizza delivered? And I'm going to come back to that one because that was really important. Newspaper. Do you have, and this is 2001, I know I'm dating myself, but there was a time where people used to get newspapers delivered to their house.
There's still a couple of people in our neighborhood who do.
Who do that.
Yeah.
But we would look like, hey, is there a newspaper delivery person who's driving around at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and is hitting these same houses? Is it the same newspaper delivery person that we have a connection with? Whatever it could be. And it is a very, very intensive questionnaire. And then when everything is inputted into a computer system the proper way, you can start making these connections. So over time, as we start to have all these victims and they're all filling out these victimology forms, we can put that in there and we can start to see some common connections. In this particular case, all 7 of the victims had ordered pizza from the same Domino's pizza.
Oh my gosh.
And I was convinced. I'm like, okay, there it is. Maybe we have the same delivery person. So we started doing more investigation. Sure enough, same delivery person from Domino's Pizza had delivered pizzas to every one of these victims.
Did all of these victims, did they live alone? Was he taking note of?
This is the part of this case that really screwed with me. One of them was married, and I think he knew she was married because he waited outside the house until the husband left. The husband went to work every morning at 5:30. As he was driving down the street, he actually saw the guy posing as a jogger running up the street. And then the guy broke in the house and raped his wife.
Oh my God. How long did he stalk her for like that?
Who knows? Years. I don't know. Well, we're going to get to that. Hang on.
Oh, no.
We got to arrest the person and figure him out first.
Fine.
But I'm convinced it's this Domino's pizza delivery guy. We have the same Domino's pizza. And this is a big area. He had moved from one store to the other.
Okay.
And when he was at one store, he delivered to a couple victims. When he moved to the other store, he was delivering to victims over there.
How did he end up in Bisbee?
He was in the National Guard. So when I saw he was in the National Guard, I'm thinking, we got our guy here. We spent probably the better part of 3 weeks doing surveillance on him. We finally did a trash pull where we saw him at a barbecue. He was having like a barbecue at his house.
Did he work at a Domino's in Bisbee too?
No, he got deployed down to Fort Huachuca and he was down in the Bisbee area.
So how did he choose his victim in Bisbee?
He's not the suspect. You're jumping ahead.
Oh.
I'm trying to explain.
Oh, sorry.
The case.
These are the types of things we edit.
What I'm trying to say is that when people start developing conspiracies, there can always be common connections that have nothing to do with anything, but you still have to eliminate that. And in this particular case, we had 8 victims. We were able to put an individual at 7 of the victims' houses and then tie him to the 8th victim that was 200 miles south of Phoenix. We got his DNA. It's not him. He matches the suspect profile, everything, but it's not his DNA. And I came up with the theory he's planting DNA because he's cleaning up these houses so well. I'm wondering if he's planting some fake DNA and leaving them on glasses on purpose to throw us off. And now that we're on to him, the one thing that's saving him is this fake DNA that he's planted.
Yeah.
I was wrong. That's what happens when you buy into bullshit conspiracies or you manufacture them in your head.
Yeah.
They don't always happen.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward 20 years, investigative genealogy, they were able to actually find the real suspect, who is this guy, John Daly. His DNA matched on 7 of the victims. He is currently in prison serving a life term. He's never going to get out of prison. He was a Border Patrol agent. So he joined Border Patrol in 1999, went through some training down here, got assigned to a sector of the Border Patrol down in the Sierra Vista Bisbee area in 2001, which is why we saw the change, and then spent the rest of his career, 20 years, down in that area with Border Patrol. But it just goes to show, kind of getting back to that question about victimology, it's important to understand victimology is a technique that is used to help develop motive and find a common tie between multiple victims, typically. With an individual case, it can still be used, and it's used to look at, is this a high-risk victim? Is this person living a lifestyle that maybe they're really prone to being murdered? And I hate saying that, but that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Or are they a really low-risk victim? And if so, like, what is it possibly that is that connection?
Right.
In this week's episode with Culpable, it's not really victimology. So I did respond to her and kind of let her know, like, hey, here's the important thing to understand. And it's not that we're saying don't consider victimology if you're listening to a true crime podcast or you're seeing the investigation there. It's not real victimology when the podcast spends 2 episodes telling you how great this person was and that there's nothing wrong in their life and that they were the up and coming best thing ever. That's not victimology. Victimology is spending the first 2 episodes explaining this is a great kid. He had a great future ahead of him, but he was struggling with some mental health issues. And here were some things that were aggravating those mental health issues. And everything was kind of coming to a head because we can look at these text messages and we can see this kid is struggling. And instead of painting this picture of perfection, we could paint this picture of recognizing real people in the world exist, right, and they suffer with problems, and maybe we recognize and help them.
Well, I think there's a lot of other things within that victimology that could have been identified as well. So when you start talking about his relationship with like his mom and his family and siblings, when you start looking at those things as well, we can really start painting more of what this potential victim looked like. In this case, our victim was Christian. But there is also something that I find really sad with this case that we didn't talk about in the episode itself, and that is something called social desirability. And this is something that it's been a study that's been done on typically male perpetrators of crime. They've only looked at males in this case, but I do believe females will do this as well. And again, social desirability is something that a lot of DV male perpetrators will do, in the sense that they will kind of put on a fake persona for people, and they'll deliberately inflate a lot of their characteristics or the person that they are. So
Posing. They're posing.
Yeah, they'll basically be a poser, if you will, in front of other people. And this is oftentimes why you'll hear DV victims say things such as, you don't know the type of person that they really are. In front of other people, they're great, they're amazing, people love them, they think the world of them, but you don't see them when they get home. So they essentially inflate their credentials as a human being, if you will, for what is known as social desirability. And what's sad to me about this case is that not only did Christian, I think, have a sense to have to do that, with him potentially being one of the youngest tugboat captains, the up and coming, and him having this really great future and things that he was good at. But unfortunately, it carried on after his death by his family as well. And again, it just completely diminished a lot of the other issues that were happening with his mental health, with suicide, and in addition to that, with the issues that we see with domestic violence as well.
Yeah, and Heather hits it right on the mark here. If it wasn't for the DNA, people would totally convict the pizza guy. And you are correct, Heather. That's a scary thing to realize as a detective, because I will tell you, I was emotionally invested in this case. I had gone back and re-interviewed all of the victims. We kind of created a task force. So I was working with a detective at Mesa Police Department who's still involved in this case. And we were in it to win it. Like, this was a legitimate sexual assault series. We knew this guy wasn't just going to stop. My theory is, and I'm 100% convinced I am correct with this theory, is when our rapes stopped, he was a full-fledged Border Patrol agent interacting with female Border Patrol issues where people are coming across the borders. And there's always been allegations about Border Patrol sexually assaulting immigrants coming across the border or border crossing people.
Were you guys able to link any of those sexual assaults?
I don't know what else has happened with that case because I kind of got out of it. But what I do want to get into is I was really motivated to find this guy. I wanted to take this guy off the streets. I wanted to prevent a further rape. And when I started finding all this evidence about the pizza deliveries and connecting them, and oh my God, the guy's National Guard, he deployed to Fort Huachuca. I was convinced we had the right guy. I was building a case to go to court and convince a jury we had the right guy. And then we got the DNA. And of course, my first thought is, okay, well, he's still the right guy. He must be planning DNA. And this is where people see us get really concerned about conspiracy BS. It's because of this. Most times there is no conspiracies. Conspiracies are something we throw on top of stuff because we don't understand it. We can't answer all the questions. So we just write it off as a conspiracy. Oh, well, he must have planted the DNA. Opposed to, you know what? No, we need to go back to square one and start this over again. We have the wrong guy. And sure enough, we have the wrong guy. So very interesting. But yeah, Heather, you hit it right on the head. And to your point of what you were talking about with the social desirability and whatnot, I think it's important to understand True Victimology is a true crime podcast representing all of the players involved in their real tense of their person, if you will, right? Not this fakeness to get people emotionally invested.
Not an inflated persona.
If you would have given his true characteristics in those first 2 episodes, everybody would have been thinking suicide is a real possibility here before they ever got into what happened.
Right.
So,
great question that just brought up a lot of other things that we didn't get to discuss as far as technicalities of an investigation as well. What?
Look at the big brain on Sarah.
Sarah always has a big brain in our live episodes. The females that come to mind to do a study on are Jodi Arias and Marissa DeVault. And what Keri was talking about. Yes, that is
social desirability in reverse, because most people always put that to a man. And that's what I think Sarah is like breaking through a little bit of the personas here.
Yeah,
the male
exactly.
Side, female.
And you have to consider too, I think I was actually thinking about this while I was working out at some point, but that social desirability of women historically as well, when we start thinking about, this is going to be a women's topic issue just a little bit. It's just purely a theory. There's nothing really to it. But I started thinking about the idea of just women always having this outlook of being out of control in some way or witchy in some way, right? Well, women have suffered a lot of sexual abuse throughout history, a lot of patriarchal abuse, if you will. And who knows how that's affected women mentally throughout history and why they may display certain behaviors that we've come to know as a female being a real go-getter, if you will.
You know, there's a lot of research coming out too about DNA and over time, how your genetic disposition can actually make you more prone to react certain ways to things because of ongoing things.
That is so interesting.
It gets crazy.
Well, you have to dig so far into the subconscious for that too. Right?
Hang on. We got to do a quick interruption to the show here. To make sure that we don't have any victims tonight, you should probably share your location with somebody right now. Maybe send them a text message, have them check on you in 5 minutes. By the way, Domino's, when you try to sue us, hey, we said it very clear. It wasn't the Domino's guy. We're not saying pizza delivery people are rapists. We need to clean this up really quick. I do want to jump to, hang on, Leslie. Leslie, look at this.
Enjoy your pizza, Anne.
Yeah, hopefully you get to enjoy your pizza.
Yeah, she will.
Leslie, I agree with you.
Yes, I feel the same way about cereal, Leslie.
All right,
thank you.
Let's talk about this. We were talking about doing an episode potentially on cereal. A little tidbit: I did review the phone records in cereal. We did get involved with a piece of that case at one point through the investigation, not through the podcast. So one of the agencies involved in that asked me to look at the phone records, and I have looked at the phone records on the cereal case, and I can tell you, the phone records give a pretty clear indication he probably did it. At least his story is not as legit as he makes it out to be. And I know that's really going to upset a handful of people, but I will tell you the phone records do tell a story in serial because they were tough to understand. A lot of people didn't give them probably the credit they deserve. So yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, look, Crash Kid. Emotional trauma has been proven to be passed on genetically.
Yeah, I completely believe that. And I think for years and generations and centuries at this point, it just takes its toll over time. And when we start to recognize familial violence and we speak about it, we talk about it, it's really one of the only ways that we can put a stop to it and get that help that everybody needs to end it within a family.
This one kind of personally hits home too, because I've always wondered, you know my brother, he's kind of slow. I'm wondering if like it's the emotional trauma through the generations of my family that has caused that.
Yeah.
Like he loves to he is slow and he loves to self-deprecate on himself. Like he loves to beat himself up and hurt himself.
You love to pick on your brother because he's in our listeners right now, and you just want to pick on him.
Oh, is he out there? Oh, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have revealed that to all of our listeners. Let's jump into a few comments here.
Terrible.
My fat organ is making me late.
What's my fat organ?
I think somebody probably had to eat a snack first.
Oh, I get that.
All right, let's go through some of this.
Love versus money, ancestral cords, and generational trauma.
A lot of people are hitting that up.
Yeah, it is a real thing. I'm going to go into our actual questions here. What?
Somebody said to stop it.
Oh.
I'm not going to reveal who that person that said stop it is, but she knows as well as I do there is some emotional trauma that probably has caused my brother to be slow.
I'm trying to read. Sounds like the tunnel vision in Delphi. We can't talk about that. DNA is what solved my husband's 18-and-a-half-year-old cold case.
Okay, make sure you're clicking on those.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. DNA is what solved my husband's 18-and-a-half-year-old cold case.
Go NCIS.
Very cool.
I'm assuming it's a military-related case if it's NCIS, but yeah, that's...
Nice. Amazing. What's IMHO stand for?
In my humble opinion.
Oh, I think it happens. That's really good. You're online too much. I think it happens more than we like or want to believe, but I think it is more laziness or being a hero for catching someone.
Yeah. This is why lives are hard. Like I have to collect my thoughts before I just blurt something stupid out. There is an innate part of, I think, every human that there's certain things that you feel wronged on. And it can be very simple, like a burglary. Going out in the morning and finding that somebody burglarized your car, right? They rooted through your car. They took a couple of things. For you, I think the most traumatized I've ever seen you go through, or an incident that you went through, just completely random. Somebody stole your purse when we were eating lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And you had a penny, literally a penny in that purse.
Well, no, it was a penny that my grandpa had given to me. So there was a lot of sentimental value attached to it. And it was a really old, like vintage penny. And it was
it's like your good luck penny.
Only thing that I cared about at that moment. But at the same time, they ran up like one of my credit cards at the Apple store to $26,000.
Yeah, but what pissed you off more?
The penny. But at the same time, no, there was a lot of things that pissed me off about this. So they ran up like 3 credit cards. What made me ultra angry was that we knew that they were at the Apple store. We knew that they were using my credit card. There was video. I actually asked Apple. They told me I needed to go to my police department to get that. So I started talking to the local police about this. And I said, hey, we can do a geofence. We can actually figure out the device that was at the location where I was when my purse was stolen. We can follow that device. We can get call detail records. I was just explaining to this idiot sergeant how to do his job, which he did not do.
You are so making my point right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes. I'm still traumatized. I have a lot of PTSD over this. But the problem is that I spent so much time on the phone with credit card companies. I probably spent a week just trying to manage all of my finances thereafter, and then making sure that I didn't continue to get fraud because they had a lot more of my information that was in my purse, right? So the fact that this agency would not do anything to help me, and to actually go catch this person was even more frustrating after having to try to manage my life around this issue.
Anyway,
I know.
You're rambling at this point, which is my exact point of it doesn't have to be this crazy violent crime. No, it doesn't have to be a sexual assault. It doesn't have to be a homicide. And what I'm getting at for Lady Di here is within law enforcement, I don't think it's as much of wanting to be a hero. It's about sitting down, listening to a victim, like exactly what you just did. We could not have rehearsed that better. But now I, and probably a handful of people listening right now, when they heard you talk about your grandfather giving you this vintage penny and you had this penny in your purse, and although there's these thousands of dollars that are getting racked up, that penny is the thing that you can never get back.
Right.
And you're a victim. Mm-hmm. And you're expressing to me how much this is hurting you emotionally. And it's very common for law enforcement to buy into that. It's almost this emotional hijacking that now as your detective, I'm like, that is really screwed up. So it's not the hero mindset. It's how do I help make this person whole again? And I think that we've lost that perception of law enforcement. There is a lot of really, really good men and women in law enforcement that their motivation is that they listen to a victim do exactly what you just did, and their heart goes out to them. And they're like, okay, what can I do to make this person whole again? They're relying on me. It has nothing to do with being a hero.
Wow.
You weren't made whole again.
I worked with did not give a shit.
I knew that's where this was going to go.
He did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Anyway, let's move on. It drives me crazy when the victim is always described as the best person ever that everyone loves.
Yeah, and it's a little trick, right, that I can do with true crime, anything, because we can't disparage a dead person, right? We can't talk bad about them. We can't do this. But at the same time, when we're talking about criminal cases, I think we have to represent the truth.
Well, I think the harder part with that is not only can we not disparage a dead person, but a family who is going to any length to find justice for their son, right? And that makes it even more difficult when we don't really recognize what is truly happening with what the family is doing and how they're being taken advantage of. Except for Sarah Boone, she can't help but be unlikable. LOL. Who's Sarah Boone? I don't know who Sarah Boone is.
That really surprises me.
Okay, somebody help us out here. Who's Sarah Boone? Move on. Love versus Money 68. Ancestral cords and generational trauma are real. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Emotional trauma. We kind of talked about these earlier. Fat Oregon. Too fast for fleas. Your mom said, stop it when you were talking about your brother.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic for my family. It's hard for us to talk about how, our emotional trauma has caused one of our loved ones to be a little bit off.
You want to talk about some of your emotional trauma?
You want to tell that story?
Yeah. So Sai and I were sitting at a bar one night, and we usually have...
This is terrible, by the way.
Bar breakthroughs.
How did this come up?
Well, because I don't
know if I'm comfortable with it. You're about to victimize me live. And you like it.
No, I'm not victimizing you. You've been a victim. We're just explaining your trauma. I talked about my trauma. You picked on your brother. So one night we were at a bar, and I was asking Sai, hey, what's one of your earliest childhood memories? And if you've never asked your spouse or significant other this question be prepared. You may not hear things that you're ready to hear.
You were more specific than that.
I said, what is one of your earliest childhood memories? And you told me the one about you. Well, you had a couple.
We were specifically talking about like trauma or bad things that had happened in your life.
No, not necessarily. The first thing that came up was bad things that happened. You didn't even remember anything good necessarily.
That's not true. See, you're already screwing the story up.
No,
we were talking about
you
bad
told
things.
me initially about how you went and hid underneath the stairs because you had a bad haircut. You hid underneath the stairs at school.
My mom shaved my head before, I think it was first grade or kindergarten. No, I think it was first grade.
Yeah.
Like in August, the week before school, she shaved my head because it was hot outside. I was like Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
I got hot. So she shaved my head and I went to school with no hair, and I was just a dumb kid. So I hid under the stairs.
Well, and then he goes on to tell me more trauma. So not only did this happen as a little kid, but he was blind as a bat in school, right? So why don't you tell them about your blindness, like in your Coke bottle glasses?
I was in the 3rd grade and I wasn't doing well. I was
in school.
Yeah, I was basically flunking. So
they thought you were just a dumb kid.
They did. They were getting ready to put me in special ed.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened? Are we okay there? I think we blipped for a minute there. Yeah, they were getting ready to put me in special ed because I was falling behind. I couldn't understand anything. And in a teacher parent conference, the teacher was explaining that she's writing everything on the board, and it's like, I just ignore it. So later on, I'm kind of getting reprimanded for not following what my teacher's writing on the board, at which point I'm like, she doesn't write anything on the board. I can never see her writing anything on the board. And it was because I couldn't see. I was blind and I was sitting in the back of the classroom.
So he finally gets to go get glasses, and he remembers being able to see like leaves on trees.
Leaves. It's not just green blobs on branches. There's actual leaves.
Yeah. So then it gets worse. So
it does get worse.
So then he tells me, as a kid, my family used to make fun of me because you had like a stammer or a stutter. What was it?
I had a speech impediment.
A speech impediment, yeah.
I couldn't pronounce my R's. I can now. R. I couldn't back then. So I would say things like Wascally Wabbit. And the 49ers were my favorite football team.
So, but his family would intentionally ask him, "Sai, what's your favorite football team?"
I became a party joke. Like when all the family was hanging out, or we went somewhere and there was a lull in the party, somebody in my family would be like, "Oh, I got one. What? Listen to this." And they'd be like, "Sai, who's your favorite football team?" And I'd be like, "The 49ers." And then everybody would laugh. Yeah.
So I try explaining to Sai, like,
by the way, I should clarify. This is like when I was 6 and 7. The 49ers are not my favorite team now.
You're saying that.
That's the biggest part of the story is I don't like the 49ers now. I did back then.
I think you're saying that so that people know you know how to say 49ers without.
The other thing that was kind of funny is I couldn't pronounce Wiener Schnitzel, but that was my favorite place to go eat, and I called it Vino Nesso.
Yeah. That's right.
But anyway, go ahead. Continue.
So I had to explain to Sai, like, hey, that's actually some pretty serious trauma. And he's like, no, I had a great childhood. Which
I did. I don't regret any part of my childhood. I love my childhood.
But I think a lot of Gen Xers suffered through things like this in their childhood.
My mother.
Oh my gosh. Love you.
Just remember, Mom, this was Keri's idea.
But I know, but I had to give your brother
some
support.
So anyway, we're sitting at the bar and she's explaining that no, they victimized you. So then we took the time.
Say they victimized.
So we took the time to start calling all of my family members
at the bar.
We were still sitting at the bar, and I couldn't get halfway through the story of asking them what they thought of this, and they're dying laughing. And I'm like, oh, Keri's right. They did get a kick out of this. But anyway.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right. Are we good with your?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like it's something squeaking. Sorry.
I'm taking that one out. All right. My sister was put in special ed because nobody knew she was half deaf. Yeah, both ears.
Oh, see, that's sad.
Yeah.
They thought she was dumb, but she just couldn't hear. That is sad.
Okay. Can we get back to the case or a different cases? Justice is truth coming forward. Being we listen and no one else has to die. Justice is always a generation behind. There is some truth to that. Oh, look at Joanne had Coke bottle glasses too. Yeah, I didn't care about Joanne. That. When you can see, it just doesn't matter. Hey, Si, are you usually consulted by either prosecution or the defense early in the case or later? Oh, that's a great question. What if? I don't think I've seen a comment from What If before.
No, he did comment. He commented last time.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I hate to say this. I get consulted when things are going wrong.
You're the cleanup crew.
Yes. And I just want to say that up front. And I think for a lot of people, this is going to make a lot of sense. I hate not being called in the beginning of cases. I have a handful of cases that as soon as the crime happens, they're calling us. And we tell some of those stories. A couple episodes ago, Cody Virgin. The moment they knew he was missing, they called us. Sarah Pagliano, the X marks the spot.
X marks the spot.
Or the guy buried her in the desert. They called us immediately. And we look back in those cases, not only did they go well, both of those suspects took plea deals, right? It didn't even go to trial. So typically, what if I get called when there's a problem? And it's frustrating because it's so much harder to clean up the pieces than to do it right from the beginning. And that's kind of was one of our taglines when we ran the company doing this stuff, is we used to tell people, if you ever have to think, should I call them? Call us. I would much rather you call and us say, hey,
well, it's mostly agencies too who've been through our trainings and understand the significance and importance of getting it done properly early, that would call early as well.
But for the record, I have been called a number of times by defense. I've never testified for the defense prior to this last year, because typically when I review cases for the defense, it's not helpful. I'll just put it that way. Or I've looked at a case and I've given the defense my opinion, and typically they're like, yeah, that doesn't help us, but thanks anyway.
Yeah, they usually say thank you, but no thank you. Right.
Let's talk about Emma's comment here. Emma's got to be from across the pond, right? Si's mom could spill more tea. You're probably right, Emma, but I will tell you, and I will tell my mother right now, that if she tries to spill more tea, I have the magic button that I can banish somebody from the live, and I will do it immediately. I love my mother, but I will banish her.
I don't know where we are in questions, to be honest, but I'm
going back through and cleaning a few up.
Is there ever a time when geofencing location does not work?
Yes. Google Avondale, Arizona, Google geofence blunder, and you'll get a case that pops up. Super interesting. It's a drive-by shooting, if I remember correctly, and I'm going from memory. I have not researched this lately, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's a drive-by shooting. They find a suspect who drove by based on Google data at the exact moment of the drive-by shooting. They do some investigation. They end up arresting this guy. They book him. He spends 3 or 4 days in jail when they realize he has a golden alibi. He was not there. Come to find out, it was his dad who had his phone and did do the drive-by. So in that particular case, his name was associated to his dad's phone. His dad's phone was at the drive-by. His dad did do the drive-by, but because it was in his name, they arrested him. The other thing is, we do have a handful of cases, and I'm not going to get into all the details because I don't want to educate bad people. We are seeing less and less positive results with geofencing. There's ways to get around geofencing. We can get creative and try to figure it out, but it's tough. So yeah, I would say the success rate of geofencing, I'm guessing here, 45%. It may even be lower.
That is crazy. It's actually a really low number considering how many geofences have been requested.
Yeah. And I bet you I'm being pretty conservative there. It's probably a little bit lower than that.
I'll let you choose the next question. During Jilly Bean, there you are. This is Jilly Bean. She asked our great question about victimology. During my purse trauma, I ran and tackled my perp. Why? I'm 5 foot 220 pounds. Still not sure why I did that. Because you carry so much of your personal life in your purse.
Well, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Look at your rant when I talked about you getting your purse stolen. There is this emotional connection that people just do things that they don't normally do.
It's comparable to being molested, like sexually assaulted in a way.
Nope.
No, like,
see, these are things that we have problems with.
It's so personal. Like for me, it is not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
The same. No, it's not the same. But it is such a personal
Hey, Bree, can you edit that out somehow? Can
this
you
is
like
where I say
get in your time machine?
This is where I say we'd probably get canceled. But it is a very personal thing, like everything that's in your purse.
Okay, let's break this one down. This one will be interesting.
My inhaler was in there. Major reason.
Your inhaler. I started hyperventilating. My asthma kicked in. I didn't have my inhaler.
Major reason why law enforcement officers need to compartmentalize, because you can't use your logical part of the brain at the same time as your emotional part.
You know,
logic needs to be first. That is such a good statement.
You know what happens though is it's in reverse. This is why when you have daughters, you're not a very good father, because you'll work some crazy shit at work. Then you'll come home and you get teenage daughter drama, and you're trying to explain to your daughters that it's not that big of a deal. And then you explain some terrible tragedy you just dealt with at work. And now you don't relate to your kids, right? And it doesn't mean that your daughters don't have legitimate feelings. Do you want to expand on that since you just took the lead?
No.
But yeah, it's to your point, love versus money. I think my kids, until recently, I've gotten better the last few years, but I think my kids did not believe that I had a heart at all for a big period of their lives, because you do compartmentalize, but it's more your family that suffers that than the general public, for sure.
I would agree with that. And I don't think that's just with male officers either.
No, you just marry a cop and then you're both the same way, and then it's perfect. We cancel each other out.
Our poor kids.
Yeah, we're like a negative equation.
Recent case in Florida. Boone convicted of her boyfriend's death. Oh, and the suitcase playing hide and seek.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
That case, I watched the video. I think it was intentional. Just watching the video, and this is me just throwing it out.
Yeah, after you guys mentioned it on that live, we did go and watch the video.
If I'm not mistaken, she's talking shit to him. Like
he's
like, I can't breathe. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, well, now you know what it feels like.
It's almost sinister provocation, like her just provoking him. It's crazy. She's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Your mom said she gave you a crew cut. She didn't shave your head.
It was shaved.
That size mom could spill more tea. I like when people say mom.
Okay, here we got a question from Jelly Bean. I've got to hit her up again because she killed it this week.
Yeah. Does a cell tower dump provide longitude and lateral coordinates? Oh. Jelly Bean.
I'm going to let you talk about this one for a very intentional reason.
So I don't know that I want to talk about this. So a cell tower will have a lat long in its particular location.
Okay, hang on. Let me clear this up then, so that where you and I are connected.
Okay,
if you guys go back to the Cody Virgin case, the catfish case. We talked about timing data.
Yes.
We can do timing tower dumps. And with timing tower dumps, to your point, Jelly Bean, yes, we can. It's not 100%. It's not guaranteed, but we can get a general estimate with lat long points of where a device is at a particular time through tower dumps. It's a complex, very complicated process. It is very difficult to do, but it is possible.
You should also explain a little bit more about a tower dump and what you're actually collecting within a tower dump.
We go back to poached, the first one of poached, the Elkicide. A tower dump is me pulling all of the devices that connected to a particular tower at a particular date and time. And the idea here is, in poached, we had a very rural crime scene. We could look at all the phones that were registering to the tower that covered the crime scene, and we could say, here's the phones that were in the area at the time. Is one of these phones our suspect?
But there weren't that many phones in the area. But
and we saw a phone come in just before the elk was killed, and we saw a phone leave right afterwards, where all the other phones stayed there because they live there.
But when you're doing tower dumps in a large metropolitan city, or even not even necessarily, it doesn't even have to be that large, you could be collecting thousands upon thousands.
I have a tower dump that I have 100,000 devices that were identified,
and you literally have to find a needle in a haystack And the importance of how the tower dump is actually collected at that point to find a lat long is extremely difficult.
Unless you have timing data.
Unless you have timing data.
And if you have timing data, in Jelly Bean, timing data is about to become really, really, really important. Let's move on. Susan Whitener, I have your back and will report him for elder abuse. Lady Di, I love you, but I will banish both of you together. Oh, Bree says the time machine's broke. We cannot edit Keri's stuff. Damn it.
Sorry, Bree. Thank you.
This week, I heard the Delphi case. That unknown female DNA wasn't tested because the investigators assumed a male assailant. Does law enforcement really do this just to ignore possible evidence? I think I can talk about that without talking about the case. So forget that on Delphi. Meanie, I will tell you, I've worked enough cases. You do hit a point of at what point do you just say enough? If you want me to throw mud on a case, I can throw mud on a case up until the day the suspect is convicted. At some point, does law enforcement, or should law enforcement and the prosecution have the ability to say enough? We can prove this guy guilty 57 different ways. We're going to stop chasing our tails with this other red herring type stuff. And I don't want to talk about the Delphi case for very specific reasons. After the case is over, we can. I'll do a live. You know what? I will do a live on Delphi after the conviction. I mean, after the case is over.
Oh my God. You are terrible. Okay. Emma Evans, way worse for Gen Z. Parents record their little size and post it on the net. It was way worse for Gen Z.
We had this conversation yesterday. We're not going to talk about what we got into. But if you are a young parent who loves to post about your children.
Oh, yeah.
We had an in-depth conversation yesterday because we have some friends that love to post stuff like this. Just remember, at some point, your cute little 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12-year-old is going to be 17 or 18.
Or 20 or 30.
And there's a good chance that profile is still open. I could tell you, if my parents posted half the shit I did as a kid, I would be mortified today.
Mm-hmm. Not just half the things you did as a kid, but also what your health might look like, your mental health, your gender status. Be careful with those things. And if you have friends who do that, give them a gentle nudge, maybe off to the side, offline, of, hey, be careful about this. Just things that some more around the table talk. Is there any way to get around a tower dump?
Yes.
Pebbles.
Tower dumps are very controversial because of the probable cause that it requires. Understand, when I do a tower dump, I know I'm going to snare individuals in my dragnet that are not related to the crime. It's a hot topic, Pebbles. There's a number of ways that you can do it properly. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're looking at cell phones, so don't have a cell phone. I do want to hit this one from Joanne. Oh, wait.
Oh, have you... Oh, wait.
Sorry. I clicked a button accidentally.
Have you ever contacted them first and not them contacting you?
Oh, do we talk about this case?
Yeah, you should. You've actually had this a couple of times.
I'm thinking Gabby.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get into details too far. So I apologize ahead of time, Joanne, because I'm going to pull back and get into crazy details. Yes, we did get involved, like in the Gabby Petito case. We saw some things come up in that case that we knew we could help with and we could assist with. And so we did our assistance and we left. What I hate, and the reason I'm not getting into those things, Joanne, is I hate it when people see an opportunity to assist in an investigation for the right reasons, and then it works out, and then they champion their cause and be like, oh, look what we did. The Gabby Petito case is a really screwed up, traumatic, terrible thing that probably could have been avoided 15 different ways. I don't want to talk about the case because it still pisses me off. But there are times that, yes, we will see a case. In fact, my brother, who I was talking about being slow.
He's not.
He is slow. We have a friend of a friend involved in a case out of Utah. And I can talk about it because I'm not going to be involved. Kind of a sad case of a special forces operator who just got home on a deployment, was sleeping, and his wife, it appears, allegedly, shot him in the head while he slept, and then went and buried the body, and they can't find the body. This is out of the Salt Lake area. So if none of you are tracking, I'll have to look up the case really quick on what his name was. But it's a big case right now because it looks like the wife's boyfriend, who she was having an affair with, has actually come forward to law enforcement and has said, hey, she killed her husband and buried him. So they've arrested her, but they can't find the body. And that's a case where kind of through some friends that we have, we heard about it. So now we've contacted the agency, or I had my brother contact the agency, and they're going to look into it.
That might be a somewhat of a good case to talk about later on, just of your involvement with how you were actually connected to that victim in a way. But that's much later.
I need the statute of limitations to pass first. Yeah. It's Cottonwood. So if anybody's interested in that case, it's out of Cottonwood, Utah. Very intriguing case. And apparently they did some big searches out in the area that they thought he was in, and they found a box of stuff. I don't know what the stuff was, but it has the victim's DNA on it. So they know they're in the right area. They just can't find the body. And that's an active one that's being worked right now.
You didn't update me on that.
Kind of interesting. I'm sorry, we've been busy.
It's okay. No, we have been busy. But actually, when we had ZX, we've talked about Keri Montano, who was our admin at the time, but she would keep up on high profile cases, and she would actually always say, hey, we should call this agency and tell them we can help them. And usually we would just send a reach out. And sometimes we'd get a call back, but sometimes we wouldn't. It just depend, I guess.
What if? Have you ever started to follow a big case where things aren't making sense and adding up? So rather than waiting to be contacted, you contacted them and offered your services.
Yeah, that's basically what I just said. Sometimes we'll do that. Yeah.
It was also this week's episode, Culpable. I listened to it because somebody who was involved with Culpable Season 2 asked me to listen to it, and I listened to it. I was disgusted by it. I reviewed the evidence. I actually contacted the mother. I got some stuff from the mom as well. I reviewed everything I could. I found what I think is significant that's been avoided and has been ignored. I contacted Culpable, left several emails back and forth, and they didn't run with it because it didn't fit their narrative. But that's an example outside of courts. But yes, we have had other ones too where we've absolutely said, hey, we know we can help here. And we've had some really good successes with those. So yes.
Yeah, we did that a lot during our time owning the company's ZX, actually. Go ahead.
And I get Delphi is a big case right now because they're right in the middle of testimony. I'm going to preface a couple things on Delphi. Number one, I can't legally talk about the Delphi case, and I want to make that really clear. And people can do their own investigating and use common sense to understand why I have to say that. I can't talk about Delphi. Without talking about the Delphi case, what I can say based on basic things that I've seen in the media is we are dealing with a defendant who clearly has mental health issues. That doesn't mean he's guilty. That doesn't mean he's innocent. And I think it's important that while we're talking about the Delphi case, or people are considering the Delphi case without me getting into details of anything I know about the Delphi case, I think that has to be paramount on everything we're talking about. Is we have to start that conversation with, we're dealing with a defendant who clearly has some mental health issues, and that changes everything. So it's just important to look at that piece, I think.
I want to talk about this one. Do you guys feel like small town law enforcement seem to struggle more with solving crime? My personal opinion, no. Sometimes I think smaller agencies do better than bigger agencies simply because we've worked with a lot of big agencies. And I will tell you something, I hope I am never murdered in Los Angeles.
I'll remember that.
Put it that way.
It's the first place I'm dumping your body, right in downtown LA, because I know I'll get away with it. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit, Leslie. It's not big agencies. It's not small agencies. I want a motivated, hard-charging detective, and I'm going to call, and I'm going to screw this up. You're going to have to help me. I know you're listening, Sev. Throw a comment out there. Bree, if Sev comments, can you put it up there? Coconino County, Arizona. It is not a big agency. I would venture to say maybe a couple hundred. It's basically Flagstaff, Arizona. The missing Mennonite. The detective, a female detective on that case, she doesn't have a ton of big city experience, right? She doesn't work homicides left and right that are just falling out of the sky. They have a couple homicides a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big agency, but I will tell you, she's motivated, she's intelligent, and she had some time on her hands. That's the combination.
What just happened?
I don't know. I did Fingers. Maybe Fingers did it.
I don't know.
And Sev, remind me of her name. It's Lauren is her first name. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, I want to do a call out to her because I think it answers Leslie's question so well. It's that combination of a very motivated detective who has common sense. They have some smarts, some logics. They approach the case very logically or in a logical fashion, and they have time on their hands. They're not so busy running around trying to solve 15 other homicides that they have time to focus on it. When you get that combination, yeah, I said Lauren, the last name, I wanted to give her props.
He's a little slow tonight.
Yeah, I told you he was slow. I told everybody. Now you guys see it. It's true. Anyway, but yeah, you give me that combination, and I love working with people like that because they're very humble. They're a sponge. They're in it for the learning process, and they want to do the right thing. So
yeah.
Okay, we have a long one here. Help me out with this one.
If you got a phone from an older crime, say 7 or 8 years ago, could you still tell exactly where that phone traveled, assuming everything was left on, etc.?
Depending on what type of records we have, the problem is most of the records 7 or 8 years ago could be purged at this point. So if the law enforcement agency did a really good investigation and they have the data, we could review the data that they have and possibly piece this together. There are a handful of databases we could go to and still get stuff from 7 or 8 years ago. But it's really hit or miss. It just depends on what it is. And I will say we've had cases 7, 8, older, 10, 12 years old that we've looked at phone records and absolutely been able to find that needle in the haystack. So yeah, 100% positive.
Yeah. Have y'all looked into Ellen Greenberg's case? Stabbed 20 times, one in the brain and one in the heart, were post-mortem.
Yes, I know this case.
So much corruption surrounding it, 2011, Pennsylvania.
Jen, I will agree with you. And this is going to be rare. Are you ready, socialites? It's very rare that I say or I start to buy into conspiracy theories. This is one case that I might buy into it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, if you can please comment, but I believe she has a lot of connections, right? Or no, her boyfriend has a lot of connections in Pennsylvania. Nagel. There it is.
Lauren Nagel.
Lauren Nagel.
Oh, our feed is behind.
Oh, it's our feed. It's not.
Oh.
Our feed is slow. He's not slow. Okay.
Next question. If a device...
Sorry. Click again.
If a device ends up in a tower dump, does it mean an in or outbound call or text happened at that time?
It depends on the provider. Jelly Bean, I kind of feel like you... If you're married,
who are you?
If you're married, can you please have your husband send me his location data? I just want to make sure we're covering our bases here. I feel like she's planning a homicide.
He's a future victim.
Is he okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay there? It really depends on a lot of variables. It also depends on the carrier. Verizon stores different things than AT&T, than T-Mobile. Won't get into that because it'll bore everybody. But typically, yes, there has to be some type of activity on the phone.
Maybe she's a criminal justice student somewhere or something like that, and she's learning.
Or her husband's in her trunk right now. She's trying to figure out where to drive and what to take.
Little arm is hanging out.
It'll look like a Halloween decoration. She'll be fine.
Meanie, if you have a suspect, a known crime, but no body, can you try to find the body by tracking the suspect's phone? If they were dumb enough to take it with them and have it on.
You would be amazed at how many times people will dump bodies with suspect's phone. Catfish. The
Cody Virgin.
100% what happened there.
Which you got a compliment on Cody Virgin. I think it was another one. We're out of order in our things, but yeah.
Chew on this one for a minute.
Have you guys ever found somebody you weren't looking for? Like collateral bodies?
Yes.
Friggy D.
I've had a couple of cases where we got onto a certain crime and then we found crazy stuff like bodies, more body parts. And I'm thinking about the foot. Was it Arkansas? Fish and Wildlife?
I don't know.
It started as one case and then we found a foot. And then that foot turned into a whole other thing. So yes, we have had those cases. It's interesting. Sometimes dumping areas are just dumping areas. The Hale case.
Oh, Darren
Where
Hale.
do we draw
Yeah.
the line?
Mm-hmm.
I was convinced we recovered his body, and sure enough, we found somebody else's body
in the
who
desert.
had their hands cut off. So yeah, crazy. Oh, thanks, lady. We're still trying to grow the channel. We're not. Well, I'll come back to an earlier comment here in a minute. Oh,
she's an ER nurse.
That's the worst, and she knows it. There's a couple people in this world you got to be really careful with. ER nurses are one of them because they've seen some shit and they deal with shit and they don't care. I say that with a lot of love.
We've talked about this. Thoughts on the Kentucky judge and the sheriff who shot the judge. Thank you again. We've talked about this in private.
The ER nurse issue?
No.
Oh.
Joanne's question. Thoughts on the Kentucky judge and the sheriff who shot the judge?
If you guys haven't been staying current on this one, basically,
this is crazy.
Not the sheriff deputy, the actual sheriff was meeting with a judge in his chambers, shot and killed him. It looks like he's willing to take a plea deal at this point. He doesn't even want to challenge it. But if I'm reading between the lines on a handful of things I've been able to dig up, because I am really curious on this case, it appears that sheriff has a daughter who I'm thinking is a teenager. The details are sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some indication that the judge and the daughter had been communicating. And I won't speculate on what that communication was, but I don't think it was a sheriff who shot a judge. I think it was a dad who shot maybe a pedophile.
Oh, shit.
And I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, Joanne, that case is going to get interesting. From everything I'm reading that I can pull up and kind of reading between the lines, I think the judge is going to look, it's going to be difficult to sympathize with this judge when everything comes out. And I fully suspect everything will come out at some point.
But it's still a crime.
It is. Well, you know what? I'd shoot me a judge and just let you know.
What reason would warrants be required for in a murder case that isn't described as financially motivated? Angel from the UK.
What reason would warrants be required for a murder case? So the motivation's irrelevant. I'm going to try to break this down, Angel. You can hit us up with another question if I don't do this right. I don't care about the motivation. If I have a murder case and I have to determine, does evidence exist? And if the evidence does exist, I have to articulate probable cause of where that evidence is currently stored and why it's relevant to my ongoing criminal investigation. So anytime that I want to seize evidence from an individual in a murder case, and that evidence is evidence of the crime of murder, I would write a search warrant. And the reason for that is we don't want to take a chance with consent or end up in a big court case where all of a sudden it's the chain of custody is being questioned of how I seize that evidence. So it's kind of just a best practice. We always use warrants in the murder cases. I think we both clicked.
Yeah. Do you ever get involved in a case the family requests help because law enforcement has given dead end answers?
Handful. We did that one in San Francisco. That was a suicide.
One was a sad one.
It was sad. And you know what? That mom, it has a lot.
Did we talk about this in
a little bit?
Culpable?
I had a case very similar to the culpable case with Christian. And this mom was extremely distraught. She was convinced her son had been murdered, had spent tens of thousands of dollars on a private investigator or multiple private investigators. Found us
and attorneys.
Yeah, found us somehow, reached out to us, kind of told me the whole story. We took the case on pro bono because I can't charge parents for stuff like this.
She sent us like boxes and boxes of all of the evidence that she had retrieved from the police department from San Francisco PD.
Yeah, and I probably spent about a month going through that case, and everything I looked at, it was a suicide. It was more so than Christian's case. There was just overwhelming evidence of a suicide, but she just was having a really hard time, and I get it. And I'm not going to get into the details of that conversation, but I found myself in this really weird place that I was trying to figure out, how do I get a mother to understand this is possible? How do I get her to accept the fact that, hey, your child considered this and then considered it more and then acted it out. And we had about a 3-hour conversation on the phone, and it got emotional. It got really emotional. And I was really worried about how she would take it, the impact I would have on her, but I had to sell her on, this is a suicide, undoubtedly, and here's why.
Well, I think not selling her on it, but you had to point out a lot of things that I think she wasn't willing to look at or accept, things that I think she willingly ignored for quite some time
I don't
about
know
her son.
if it was willingly. I think subconsciously she just couldn't digest it, right?
Yeah, it was hard.
And it surprised me at the end of that conversation, like we really bonded, and she's like, you know what, for the first time ever, I feel like I have closure in this case. You're the first person who's explained something like this to me that I can understand. She sent us Christmas cards for years.
Actually, gifts. She would send us boxes of Christmas gifts and cards and things throughout the year. It was...
And we've had a handful of that. That's one's the most profound because I don't know what it was. We just synced really well. So, but love versus money, I will tell you, that's really hard. I'm not going to use the words, I hate working with families. I dislike working with families because if you take the family piece out, and I'm working with prosecutors or defense, just the facts. But when you're working with families, you have to remember that emotional tie, right? You have to behave a different way, and it can be very exhausting to do so. Not saying we won't do it. It's just,
it's already draining working the facts of the case. But then when you have to become emotionally attached and detached, it becomes even more draining.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Happy HK. You have an HK.
Oh,
you have an H&K.
I do have an HK.
What do you call it? Because you can't pronounce it?
Well, no, I couldn't remember for a long time. So Sai bought me we were traveling.
I know this is going to surprise our audience, but we are gun owners.
We were traveling a lot, and
they want to hear the bird.
So when he says happy HK, he's talking about the HK there. So we were traveling, we were on the road a lot, and Sai wouldn't be with me at times. So he said, hey, let's make sure you're safe.
Well, and we have people that don't like us. I know it's
there are a lot of people who don't like us, and I do worry often about who might be stalking us or whatever. And stalkers for us are a little fun because we do kind of mess around with them a little bit. But so he bought me, we were in Tennessee actually when you bought me this handgun. We found this really amazing.
I've been looking for it for years. As soon as I saw him, like, we have to buy it because it's really hard to find.
So he bought me a Heckler and Koch handgun, and it is Koch,
C-O-C-H, K-O-C-H.
Heckler and Koch handgun. See, I still have problems, but it's a really great handgun. Apparently, I know how to use a firearm. I don't.
What do you call it though? Because you always forget the name.
So someone asked me once, not too long after he bought this for me, hey, what kind of gun do you have? And I said, a Hinkle-Schninkle. I couldn't remember the name.
So those of you who are gun owners, like, H&K is a really high-end brand. This is a really nice gun. So when Keri's trying to tell people about her H&K that's a Hinkle-Schninkle, it's just a little bit embarrassing.
I think it's really nice. It's a great gun. It's beautiful.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, really silly. But you didn't answer his question, whoever Happy HK is.
Yeah, I did. Didn't I?
Delphi, law enforcement don't have the defendant's phone at the time of the murder. Is there any way to retrieve the data only by knowing the register? Can you answer that? Are you allowed to answer that?
Happy HK, I don't know anything about Delphi. With that said, there's a number of ways that we can identify devices in a particular area or that fall within a certain pattern without knowing the owner. And I will just default here to burner phones because everybody's probably familiar with burner phones. Just because your name's not associated to the phone doesn't change things. We can still get pretty into what that is. Have you guys ever heard of the Thomas Brown case? I have not, but you know what? I will do some research in our next live. We will, I'll be able to speak to that a little bit more.
Have either of you, no, we've got to answer this one. Have either of you or both been to therapy to deal with how traumatic your jobs have been? No, Sai says he doesn't need therapy because he likes himself just the way he is.
Why do you do this?
Because
I don't want to go to therapy because I'm worried I'm going to hate myself.
So
I like myself.
So Leslie, our kids ask us this or tell us we should go to therapy all the time. Like, so
I think we've had conversations where they start the conversation with, "Hey, are you guys in therapy yet?" Like,
yeah,
no, I'm not going to therapy.
Though I do think you're kind of right. I think it scares us a little bit what might come of therapy, and I don't know that we're ready for that.
I think we have really good outlets.
We do.
And I do think we're unique. I don't want to sound I need to clean this up. Damn it, Leslie.
This is where we would edit Leslie so that we don't get canceled.
Yes, Bree, get ready with the little. We need to give Bree the bleep button that she can just bleep us out when we say stupid things.
We do. There is like a technical button.
Okay, so let me try to clean this up a little bit, Leslie. I do believe 100% in what you are asking, and I do believe that there are people who have done similar work that Keri and I have that absolutely need to go get therapy quick. And I know a few of them. At the same time, Keri kind of is my outlet, and I think vice versa. Yeah. We got really lucky in our relationship that we understand each other really, really well. We have similar issues that we deal with, and I have that venting piece. Our kids make a lot of fun of us, but at the same time, our kids get it now because all of our kids are old. I don't know if people realize.
Well, they're not old.
They're old.
They're between 20 and 29 years of age
30
now. 30. Yeah, 30.
Our kids are between 21 and 30.
Yeah,
digest that.
But what's interesting though is I would say over the course of the past 3 years, we've actually learned a lot from our kids that I think has helped within our own mental space that we didn't realize we needed.
And we do a lot of self-reflection. Like we read a lot of different things. We talk a lot. So Leslie, to your question, we do things that are very therapeutic in our lives. We don't seek therapy. And the reason that I haven't, and I know a lot of people are going to immediately start responding about how dumb I am, and I get it. I'm not defending my answer. I'm just saying my personal experience is most therapists can't relate to what I'm talking about. And I've had this because there's this thing called CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management. And within law enforcement, they've been really prone to start these programs where they're recognizing first responders are being exposed to these different traumas. So right after you have this trauma, you have to go into this meeting and basically you have this debrief and it's about this critical incident stress management. And then you have follow-up and you have therapy and blah, 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 blah. My experience is I found myself explaining and talking about things that nobody in the room understood. I've had to explain things to therapists that they're like, oh, that, and I get that they understand the trauma piece, but I almost felt like this is just a waste of, I didn't feel anything out of it. And if therapy isn't working for the person in therapy, it's time to find a different therapeutic solution.
Therapeutic.
Yeah. Therapeutic would be kids.
I don't even think
therapeutic.
Pediatrics.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bleep. Anyway, so Leslie, we do things that are very
unconventional
driven, but we don't see a therapist.
Unconventionally therapeutic.
Let's move on. Yeah. Jen, help me.
Thanks, Leslie. Gotta run, but please cover blue snarfing and blue bugging. It's absolutely terrifying. What is that?
I have no idea.
In your experience, are most murders pre-planned or more spontaneous or random?
Oh.
That one's a tough one. I would say a lot are planned
50?
In some way. They're just planned terribly as though it were spontaneous.
I'm going to go with 50-50 on this.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to probably say 50-50. I will say when you look at sex, it changes. I would say females are more planned where males are more spontaneous.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Happy birthday, Pebbles.
Oh, Pebbles. I would sing to you, but it's terrible and everybody tune us out, so we're not going to do that.
I hope you have a good day. Is it common for chain of custody to cause issues with the likes of contamination?
Yes. What case?
We talked
Las
about
Vegas, Panaka, Debato. It's not Debato.
Kristen Lobato.
Kristen, I knew you'd get it. Kristen Lobato. What did we call that episode? Small Town Girl.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch Small Town Girl, we actually have a really good one here where it's a false conviction, and she's released today and she's doing very well, but she was convicted 100% under horrible circumstances twice. One of the things that came up in that case is they recovered DNA that identified an entirely different suspect, but it's because the coroner used the same scraper to scrape fingernails from the person in the autopsy before the victim. So they had scraped the fingernails in one person, then another autopsy, they used the same tool, contaminated the DNA, and ended up finding a complete different DNA profile, which really screwed the case up for a while. It is very common.
Yeah.
Cops are probably the worst.
It's just another piece, though, of that investigative process and identifying steps to not only eliminate those issues happening, but identifying steps of documentation that you can identify when those things happen.
Yeah. If you're super bored, the Kayla Brown story, Girl in a Box.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla Brown, they rescued her from a shipping container. We actually played the video on that one. If you go back and you rewatch the video, you can just YouTube Kayla Brown rescue. When law enforcement enters that Connex container, one of the last guys in has a water bottle that he's drinking. And as soon as he enters the Connex container, he sets it down on a chair. I don't know if he ever went back and got it, but now we have a cop's DNA that's on a half-drank water bottle inside a Connex container that we've had a victim tied up in for over 60 days. If we process that scene and now we have the cop's DNA as possibly being there before, it would cause a real issue.
Is it possible to skew your location by leaving your contact phone in one location and take a contract phone in one location and take a non-contract prepaid to the crime?
Meanie, I've got this case out of it's Montana. I can't remember the name.
You've had a lot of cases where people have.
I don't want to explain why, because I don't want to educate the bad people. I will tell you, Meanie, or anybody else planning on doing that, don't. It makes the trail even more obvious. And I've had a couple of cases now that I've testified to this. And what the problem is for the guilty people in court is we can show the what's the word I'm thinking of? The extra effort that they put into going and getting
the intent
of getting a contract phone and taking the contract phone to commit the murder while they left their regular phone at their house. It usually plays really, really bad in court because we'll see both of them.
Why would there be warrants in a murder case for Department of Education? Thanks again. I don't know. Is this a case out?
I don't know. I can't answer that one. Oops. We're both hitting the same button.
I brought up family requests because of the Daniel Robinson case I brought up last live. Are we able to give out your information to the father? Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
No guarantees, but we will always look something over. And if there's something we can obviously do, even if it comes down to just contacting the local agency and getting involved, we will.
We did have someone reach out to us for an email address recently as well for a case that her family was working through. I wonder, did you get anything in your email?
No. Joanne, the answer is yes. Oh, there we go. I have had this case and we removed ourselves from it because I think I've only had it once, but we reviewed the records and we absolutely knew they had the wrong guy. So
you had a case like this, not for prosecution, but also with an agency you were working with in Florida, and they had the wrong guy. And when you told them that, they never called back.
Yeah, but they never arrested him either. So that's good.
Yeah. Have you guys ever testified for a defendant been contacted by a victim's family?
I have only testified in my entire career once to date. I've had one time that I've testified on behalf of a defendant. It wasn't for the victim's family.
Is there any cases where you read or see on TV, etc., and just think, no, and no, it's not the right perpetrator?
80%? No, I don't know. A lot. Yes, we do see that, Angel. It's really frustrating.
Have you ever been contacted by a victim's family during or after a case because you'd given testimony in a case?
Several times. I would say it almost got routine there for a while. At least an email or something. But yes, I've had a lot of families. And I don't know how to say that. I don't like it. because it makes it real, right? When you're just doing case after case after case, it's very easy to go through the process of just, hey, it's just another case I need to do. When you talk to family members, especially
you have
victims,
to feel.
Yeah, it makes it real. So I'm not good about that. This is part of my therapy.
Yeah.
I understand I'm not good at it, so I don't like it because it makes it real.
Because you have to use your emotions and feelings. Yeah.
I have to use my big words.
Which do you find most rewarding, solving a murder or finding a missing person?
Always the rescue.
That's a great question.
If we can do the rescue, I prefer the rescue. The rescue is harder, depending on who you're talking to, because then you really get to sense that trauma that happened. But obviously, finding missing persons has always been a good kick.
There's a little bit more personal gratification in the reward.
Yeah. The other thing I think that I found most rewarding is the education teaching piece to law enforcement. It's really cool to get involved with an agency and the ground floor of them developing a unit that does this type of work. And then over the course of 5 to 10 years, watching that agency grow and then watching like, holy cow, they're the tip of the spear in the country now. And we have a couple agencies we've worked with that. I love watching law enforcement develop, I think, more than anything, because there's only so many cases we can solve.
Right.
But if we can scale those techniques and that ability, that's where the real change comes. So that's always where I think I get the most satisfaction in everything we've done.
Well, and seeing them become successful with it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Leslie, great answer about therapy. Thank you.
Yeah. Keri's my therapy.
Thank you for understanding. Do you still talk about questions after you quit the live?
Yes.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
Usually I reprimand Keri about not talking about certain things. It's not true.
No,
I'm going to do that tonight, though.
No, yeah.
I'm like, hey, my childhood trauma's off limits.
No, we actually go off about it. But yeah, we do talk about them, Ro. Thank you. Have you ever followed the Sean Ellis case out of Norfolk County, Massachusetts?
I have not, but I'll look at it.
Sean Ellis. You guys always give us so much to think about. Have either of you ever been involved in a case when the law enforcement had one suspect and the internet has found another suspect and been right and solved the case?
I have not.
I haven't either.
Wait, what are you doing? Hang on. I want to talk to Scott here because
British don't tend to do therapists either. Scott Metalhead, you're also from the UK area. You're Brit.
This is his first comment.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Scott? I haven't ever seen Scott Metalhead.
It's good to see you, Scott. Come back, buddy. We'll be doing some more. Oh, Miss Potts is in. I think it's the first time I've seen her tonight.
Yeah. I want to go to the UK.
Is it true DNA uploaded to CODIS stays forever unless court order is produced to remove it? Thank you so much. Yes, Miss Potts. CODIS is, once it's in CODIS, it's always in CODIS. There are certain rules. It's important for people to understand. CODIS has a lot of requirements to get data into CODIS. If some of those requirements were not properly followed, there can be some other things that fall into place to pull that sample out because it was entered in error. But short of that, yes, it would take a court order, but typically CODIS is forever.
Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. Appreciate you. You're very welcome. Were you involved in that wrongful conviction case? Which wrongful conviction?
Probably Labata. No.
Oh.
No, we just reviewed it after.
No, we just did the case to do it. Hypothetically, if DNA from a scene was uploaded to CODIS, then CODIS would have that DNA even if it wasn't produced in discovery.
That is correct.
At Heather Fitzgerald. Yeah.
100%.
I like that Miss Potts always gives us champagne glasses clinking together. If a cop committed a crime and DNA is found at the scene, but he is working at the same scene, would it just be dismissed as being from work-related rather than criminal?
Depends on what the type of DNA is.
Go into that a little bit more.
If it's blood and there's no reason for a cop to be bleeding at scene, if it's semen, it's kind of hard to explain.
Oh.
Oops, I left my semen there. But wait, why were you there? I was working the crime scene. Well, why is your semen on the bed?
Or if it's not a crime scene.
Yeah, oopsie poopsie. So yeah, I'm just going to default to it really depends on the type of DNA.
Thank you for answering my question. I didn't know that burners could be associated with a particular person.
Yes, they can. And again, I don't want to educate bad people. I love it when suspects use burner phones because it usually makes things easier. Where everybody thinks burner phones is like this way to get around phone technology, it's the exact opposite. It gives us even a better pattern.
It's just another paper trail.
Yeah. And at some point, most people who get a burner phone will travel with that burner phone and their real phone at the same time. And man, that just makes it 100% better.
Lovetina 2010. Have you ever done a case you were so involved with, it made you cry?
Love Tina, I don't cry ever, except for the one time Keri dumped me. She put me on the curb like a sack of trash. Other than that, no.
That wasn't a case.
I know. I said that's the only time I cried. It was the case. It was the most dramatic case I ever worked.
I don't think I've ever cried during a case. No, because I think you get to a point where you literally do learn how to flip a switch.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to probably our need for some therapeutic assistance. But no, you literally flip a switch and you turn off emotion. Now, would I think about it later and think like how screwed up something was or feel sad about it? Yeah, but I think so much time passes and there's so many different dynamics within that you understand about it that you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the most impactful time for me on cases like that is testimony, where you're really having to get into the meat and potatoes of the entire case. And that's just not the time, right? You have to be very professional. Mm-hmm. And I'm too good at disassociating that once that's over, it's out of my mind. It's actually probably an issue there. Sev agrees with us to teach someone to fish. That's because Sev is one of the better. Hey, by the way, let's call out the slow kid in the room. So for those of you who don't know, you can start harassing him. By the way, Sev is the lead instructor for the TRACS program and all things that we've talked about. So those of you who are like, hey, when agencies contact you or people do this or people do that, Sev's the guy now. He is out there teaching cops every day, like to the tune of tens of thousands of law enforcement. He's going to hate this and he's probably never going to come back to it live, which is great. So I don't have to deal with him anymore.
Well, it's not, he doesn't just teach on TRACS though. I think the better part of that is that he teaches the process of investigating call detail records and geolocation data so that any cop, regardless pretty much of what kind of program they're using, whether it's TRACS or whatever else is out there, they can go in and testify to how geolocation data works and how we find people using that
and see if you're going to teach law enforcement. And I can say this because I was law enforcement. So those of you who are like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. I'm talking about my own people here. You need the slow kid to teach to the slow kids. So Sev can get the hand puppets out and make it all make sense.
Okay, come visit me. I live near Angel on the North. Beautiful place too. I want to come visit.
Do some research. Find out where that's at.
Yeah, and I'll come visit our new listener.
Do you think former law enforcement guy? Oh, you know what? I'm going to let you answer this one.
Hold on. Good show. Do you think former law enforcement that turn into defense lawyers make out to be good lawyers?
Keri wants me to become a defense attorney.
No, I didn't say you should become a defense attorney. Now, do I think you should become an attorney of some sort? Yes, I think you'd be a great attorney. As a matter of fact, we go into a lot of meetings, very high profile meetings, and everybody asks Sai if he's an attorney, and he has to explain, no, I didn't do well in school. I'm not an attorney. But I don't know. I guess there's some form of law enforcement who could be good attorneys and some aren't.
You understand the process, especially after like 20, 30 years. And if you testify a lot, you see, this is always one of the things I've loved about getting out and working across the country. When you stay in your bubble, you only know your bubble. And you may be really good in your bubble, but it's just your bubble. Sometimes getting involved with law enforcement across the country, which we've had the opportunity to do, you start seeing how different agencies do business different, right? And you can pick the good and the bad from each one of those, and you can almost start to perfect this melting pot of different methodologies. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to understand that when you get somebody who's experienced 20 ways of doing things opposed to somebody who's done the same thing always, and they may be very successful, but it's just their thing, that being able to look at the big picture across the country has really changed the way that I look at law enforcement, that I look at some of these cases. So to answer that question, I think if you have somebody who has a lot of experience in a lot of different jurisdictions, they are very powerful in that field.
And we've learned a lot from agencies across the country and detectives across the country. Yeah, so it's been 100%. Really good. Miss Potts said the two of us, you and I make her happy and smarter. Thank you, Miss Potts. How do you deal with a case you can't solve or you lose at trial knowing they're guilty? How do you deal with that?
I'm afraid to answer this.
This is kind of a trick question.
Yeah, Emma, if this goes south on me, I am blaming you. I'm calling you out right now.
Emma Evans.
I have never testified in a case where the defendant wasn't found guilty. 30 years. I've never had it happen.
Moving on. Angel, do you know of any cops who've stalked victims who they've been to see for a crime? UK cop done this.
Stalked victims.
Those UK cops.
Oh, yeah. What's the Huntington? Was it Huntington Beach? Sev, help me out here. Remember the commander was dating the patrol officer, but had sent her like 10,000 text messages.
He was they were.
And it was funny because
cheating, or he was cheating on his spouse.
Yeah,
or something.
On his spouse with her. And we asked, like, wait, 10,000 times? And was like, yeah, that's true love. It's a long story.
It's true. No, because he was sending, she actually reported him because he got to the point of he was just harassing and stalking her. And she no longer wanted a relationship with him. But we were kind of that sick sense of humor of ours with other people. But we got to the point of, well, how many text messages had he sent her? And it was like within 1 week, he had sent her 10,000 text messages that she wouldn't reply to. She maybe replied 3 times. Somebody said, it's true love.
Yeah,
man.
That's how you know it's true love.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, but it was an out of control case.
All right, Seven Angel, you guys can chat later or on your own. I want Keri to answer this one.
Do you guys have a favorite holiday? Fun question. Oh,
I know yours.
My favorite holiday was probably Halloween, especially with my kids.
Keri's favorite holiday is October 31st. Mine is November 1st.
Why November 1st?
The end of Sobertober.
That was only this year. Yeah, I would say probably Halloweenish. Yeah, Christmas stresses me out. Although Christmas is fun, those holiday times, it stresses me out. I don't have as much fun. Hypothetically, I'd say go to CODIS when known profiles exist in a case from a scene, and one side doesn't want to produce what was uploaded. Seems to be a few cases where this has occurred.
Yeah. Miss Potts, I'm going to speak between sentences here because I know you're smart enough to figure out. CODIS is so 1996 right now. CODIS is not the database that's being used. In fact, CODIS is, I won't say it's not being used, but the percentage of hits out of CODIS compared to the investigative genealogy right now has changed the playing field. It's really interesting. And what you're going down the road, I'll let you digest and chew on this for a while, is I think you're hitting some things about exculpatory evidence. Like, hey, why can't CODIS be used for exculpatory? If we know that this suspect was there or wasn't there, can't we run that profile through CODIS? Why can't we do investigative genealogy for exculpatory reasons? If we can find suspects, we can rule out suspects. And I would love somebody to send me a case where we've had a wrongful conviction and then they used investigative genealogy to disprove it. And I'll just leave you guys with that one. Okay. I got to hit this one because I stole Oopsie Poopsie, by the way. One of my favorite podcasts.
Oopsie poopsie. I forgot you said that.
What is the history one?
Oh,
we haven't listened to it in a long time.
The Dollop.
The Dollop. I'm a big fan of The Dollop, and it's two comedians. They do a great job, and one of them uses oopsie poopsie all the time, and it's stuck.
I do love The Dollop. They're hilarious. For the record, I was joking about my weekend getting more boring, knowing that burner phones make tracking easier. Sevo, I saw that. Levtina 2010. Oh, sorry. Have you had others in a case interfere with what you are doing? What is done to stop the overstepping? There is a case out of Los Angeles.
I knew you were going to do this.
That yes, he has had this. And as soon as this case is adjudicated, we will cover this in depth because...
Yeah, and maybe this is a really good transition for just a second. We're not done. We're just taking a break because we have a lot of things coming on and we just can't maintain the pace we've been doing the last year. We had 53 episodes out now. We need a little bit of a break to catch up. We will be coming back with something at some point. I just don't know what that is and I don't know when that is, but that's a great case and I would love to talk about it one of these days.
It needs to be discussed.
Miss Potts, I disagree with you, but that's okay.
Halloween is the most wonderful time of year, Keri. I know. Thank you, Miss Potts. I agree.
And maybe we end it with this one.
Genealogy, like FIGG, end up in SCOTUS.
Yes, it will. It's coming, and it's coming faster than you think. In fact, it is my prediction, Mimi, that the case that will cause this to go to SCOTUS is a current case out there now. And I'm not referring to any case in particular, but I think we've already crossed that threshold that it has to. It may take a year or two because that's the gears of the criminal justice system are slow, but it's coming. It's going to happen. And I think we're going to all be surprised by the result. I'll just put it that way, because there's some shady things going on with IGG. And I'm on the fence because I think it's a great tool, but at the same time, I hate it when we abuse certain things because we will lose it. And then bad guys are going to get away.
At what stage is it classed as a cold case officially?
Angel, that is a problem in the United States. I can't speak for anywhere else, but in the United States, it's when the detective says so. And that's why it's a problem, is there's no consistency.
It is different everywhere.
Yeah. Some agencies will put a time frame if they haven't had any leads within a certain period of time, but a lot of times it'll just be the detectives like, I just don't see anything. Sometimes
it's 2 paragraphs in a report, and sometimes it's 130 pages of report. Trigger point, Cy and LA County. Yes, that is a trigger point.
Let's move on.
Impressed by the number of Brits on here at 2 a.m.
Yes.
Feeling lucky to be.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I love our British people. That is.
I do too. Well, I love that they understand our humor, and more importantly, that they don't think we necessarily need therapy either or anything like that.
Yeah, and Seb brought this case up here. And those of you who are tracking IGG, the investigative genealogy, just Google it. It's up. Nilo and the Fifth Circuit is looking at a case out of Boston right now. This is an attorney who he wasn't an attorney at the time. I want to say like 2006 to 2009, a number of sexual assaults in the Boston area. He had a very consistent pattern with how he was committing these sexual assaults. So it's very easy to link them together. Through IGG, they recently identified him. They've arrested him. From the time of the rapes till now, he's become a fairly successful practicing attorney. He is challenging the IGG. He's not challenging anything else. And he has the clout and the resources to potentially push this to a SCOTUS case. So it'll be really interesting to see where this one goes. And I do think it's going to redefine that landscape. So it's always interesting. I always say, there's because I said so law, and then there's the law. And because I said so law is, well, I've read everything that's available right now, and I think this is the law, and I think this is what I can do, so I'm going to do it. And law enforcement loves to do because I said so law. And then there's the law. And what that is all of these different agencies start doing what they think is right and what I said so law. And then the criminal justice system catches up and says, no, this is the real law. Right now with IGG, we are in the land of I said so law. it's going to get changed. It's going to get redefined, and it needs to. There are some things that I have personally seen within the IGG that are appalling to me, and there's nothing I would like to do more than arrest bad guys. So when I'm a little bit disturbed, I think it's worth talking about and saying this needs to be looked at.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Hey, great questions, everybody, tonight.
This is the first time we've ever had 2 hours.
Yeah, we have a group of smart cookies, though.
And you haven't complained about being hungry once, which is a whole other record.
Well, that's because I'm like drinking grapes right now. And I haven't had a full glass of wine in a long time.
You did have a protein shake before, too.
I did have a protein shake. But thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for all of your support through all of our 53 episodes that we produced this past year. We've loved hanging out with you guys and meeting you. We will push via our text app more often of when we're doing a live or when we're going to cover something so that you guys know when it's coming. So please feel free to visit our new website. Brianna actually put together something. Oh, socialitecrimeclub.com. No. It's socialitecc.com, isn't it? I don't know. Stay updated.
Go with Bree.
Okay. This is Bree. Socialitecrimeclub.com. Yeah. But she will have all of our updates, and she actually has a little video of our recent photo shoot that we mentioned.
Oh, yeah. So just to put some people at ease, I think this is important that we discuss.
Okay.
We're not done. We're changing a few things we're doing. We're going to take, like I said, the little hiatus. We're playing with some other ideas. You guys haven't seen The Last of Us for sure, so don't get too freaked out. We actually did a photo shoot. We mentioned it the other day. We did a photo shoot. I did not like it. I hate photo shoots, but Keri liked it. Bree actually has a video about it. So just to help you guys feel better, this last week, I'll show you a little clip here that we have of our photo shoot because of some other projects that we're starting to get into. You got that, Bree?
Yeah, but we'll close. Guys.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry. Go ahead, Bree. Sorry. So that was that. But
it is truly a story of Beauty and the Beast when I see that. I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, my God, stop.
Okay, we're out of here.
Have a great night,
Thank you guys very much. Love the turnout. We had a great turnout tonight, just looking at the numbers right here. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. And hey, you UK people, it's a whole different thing, man. 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning is awesome. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
We'll be doing another live here probably in a couple of weeks. We have a lot of travel. One of the things that I will say, I want to cover some more real-time cases in some of our upcoming lives, and we can do that a little bit differently as time progresses here. So yeah, stick around. Make sure you sign up for that text notifications, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, text notifications at our new website.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Or good night.
And that's it.